This is Jed Johnson from Diesel Crew. Of course, you know they call me NAPALM. And this is episode number 3 of NAPALM Live. And I hope the audio is coming through this time. I think we actually had our telephone going. We had a phone call before this. I think we had that going still when we did it before. So tonight, I'm in Philadelphia, and I have a seminar tomorrow, strength and conditioning conference with the NSCA. So been talking with Josh Culpepper, who's joining me on the call tonight, about conjugate training recently, and he said he had some questions. So I thought, well, hell, maybe we could do a NAPALM Live together, and he could hit me with the questions that way. So, Josh, why don't you tell everybody about yourself, and then we'll get this thing rolling a second time.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm Josh Culpepper. I'm from the St. Louis area. I'm 45. I got started in all of this by being a rock climber. I've done that since I was a kid. But at some point, I transitioned over to doing grip. Actually, I got hurt, and I saw your website, and then the rest is history. I have a little bit of experience with lifting weights, but not a ton. And I've done a bunch of reading on like the West Side stuff. It seems to make sense, but I feel like I'm missing a couple of the pieces. So I was hoping you can kind of straighten me out today. So,
yeah. So, what I thought I would do is just go over the basics of conjugate training. And I do want to say I did not invent this. I found out about this from Louis Simmons way back in like 2001 at a seminar. And I've listened to I don't know how many dozens of videos that he spoke about it on YouTube. Dave Tate, Matt Wenning, Jim Wendler, AJ Roberts, all these guys have content on YouTube talking about conjugate, and I've followed all those guys over the years. So I really wanted to shore up my approach to strength training and have something that would be a little bit more consistent, a little bit more structured. And I finally made the jump to full conjugate training in 2023. So feel that I have a pretty good grasp on it. And I love the structure. I love the program. I love the methods. And I talk about it all the time in my email newsletter. And if anybody wants to be added to my email newsletter, you can email me at jed.diesel@gmail.com, jedd.diesel@gmail.com. And I'll add you to the newsletter. You can get tips and tricks for your strength training and grip training and all that stuff. So there's in the conjugate plan, it's a 4-day program generally. And this is an approach for power lifters most often. It's also been adapted to strongman in many cases, I know. But it was actually originally conceived by Russian Olympic weightlifting coaches and in that system. So the way that the structure is laid out, I believe the week starts with max effort upper. It's been so long since I've done the actual basic conjugate template that I'm having trouble remembering whether it's upper or lower that's first. And when we did this the first time, I said lower, but I think it's actually upper. But either way, we can Google that and I'll put it in the comments or something. But you start with max effort. So day 1 would be max effort upper. And you would try to, the way Louis always talked about it is you would try to set a new PR in a lift. And it's a variation of a lift. So with bench press, there's dozens and dozens of different variations that you can do for bench press. It doesn't have to be just bench press. You can do 1 board, 2 board, 3 board, 5 board. You can take it off of a dead stop off of pins. You can do lockouts for only 2 inches. You can add bands, you can add chains, you can use different bars. There's all kinds of variations that you can do. So in my training, I have a list of like 15 or 20 different bench press exercises. Same thing for deadlift, squats, and press. And then I also have variations for strict curl and dips and all that stuff. So when we say it's max effort day, that means the first lift that you're going to do in your work sets is you're trying to break your PR on that variation of the lift that day. Now, some people manage their program where they only hit a lift that is at least 90% of their 1 rep max, but we try to break our 1 rep max by 5 pounds on all the variations in our program. Evan, who I had on in episode 1, he's my training partner, and we also do press, overhead press in our training. So right there, that's a change from the normal conjugate method. So the next workout would be max effort lower. So you would do a variation of one of the lower body exercises. So deadlift, squat, front squat, good morning. All these things are lower body exercises. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can vary those up as well, with the different bars and with bands and with chains. And, you could do a bottoms up squat. You could take a good morning out of a chain from a dead stop. There's all kinds of variations that you can do. Now, on the max effort days, you're not going to try to break your PR or go to 90% on every single lift you do that day. You're going to do that generally on one lift. The rest of the workout is broken up between improving something that you've identified as a weakness. So to get better overall at the lower body variation that you did, or the upper body variation that you did. And then at the end of the workout, you would work on things like muscle building, conditioning, explosiveness, things along those lines. So repetition effort fills out the rest of your workout so that you can work on everything that you need to become a better athlete in the gym. Now, 72 hours later, after the first max effort workout, you would do dynamic effort for that same upper body or lower body. So if you started your week with upper body max effort, then 72 hours later, you would do dynamic effort for upper body. And that would be some variation of that lift, and you would use a much lower percentage. As I recall, 50 to 60% of the 1 rep max would be used if you're using band tension, because you're also going to use 25% band tension. So what Louis used to talk about is most of the speed work should be done between 75 and 85%. So that factored in a 25% band tension to the bar. So if you're lifting 200 pounds on the bar, then if your PR is 200 pounds, then 25% of that would be band tension. And so basically you would go 50% on the bar, 50 to 60% plus 25. And that would give you a total of 75 to 85%. Does that make sense, Josh?
Mm-hmm.
So the straight weight is 50 to 60 plus 25, you end up 75 to 85%.
So if I had a 200-pound bench press, half of that would be 100. So on a dynamic day, I would do 100 plus another 25 of band tension.
25%. Yeah. So that would be 25% of 200. It would be 50. So
it's 200. Okay, it's 25% of whatever your max is, not 25% of what the dynamic weight is.
Yeah. So, okay. And then he would often do that in either 8 sets of 3, 12 sets of 2, 5 sets of 5, stuff like that. He talks about like a magic number being about 25. So however you want to get to 25 reps, that's how you would do it. And then the same for your fourth day of the week. Be dynamic effort for whatever you did on your second workout of the week. So what we have there is a 4-day split. You're going to start out working max effort or dynamic effort, and then the rest of the work is repetition effort or repetition method. I'll also say that with the dynamic effort training, it has to be fast and it has to be perfect form. So you're not creating bad habits when you're doing this. You're locking everything in tight and you're producing tremendous force, moving the bar as fast as possible. The idea is you get stronger by becoming faster. So, you know, if you think about it, if it takes you a second and a half to come out of the hole and lock a squat out, there's a chance that you would burn out at some point and fail. So you want to try to become faster so that instead of a second and a half, it's only taking you maybe 1.1 seconds to to lock out that barbell. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so basically what you do is what we did is every week we tested a lift, set a PR. Then the next week we would do a different lift, set a PR, different lift, set a PR. So after 6 weeks, we had 6 different lifts. And then each time that we switched something up, we would have a different lift, whether it's a different bar, adding bands and chains, etc. There's all kinds of different ways to make variations of your lifts. So I have 15 to 20 variations of deadlift, squat, bench, and press. And we track all those. You can fit it all on one sheet in an Excel spreadsheet. I print it out, and every time we do the lift, we break the PR. I just white it out and then write the new numbers in for both of us. And all of these lifts, so if we say 15 times 4, that's 60 different lifts, plus probably 10 or 15 more for the other lifts that we use Conjugate for. You can have all these lifts right at your fingertips, and whatever you're feeling like that day, you can, like, if your shoulders are a little sore, you don't have to do straight bar on for barbell squats. You could use a safety bar or any kind of bar that has like a camber to it that's going to be a little bit easier on your shoulders, and you just try to break the number, the PR number that you have established for that variation. Now, on the days that Evan can't make it, maybe his work is going late, he's not going to make it to the workout. There's lifts that I haven't tested in a while that are a little bit lighter weights, and I don't need him for a spotter. So I'll do those on that day. And then it's a little bit more of a safer situation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the basic Conjugate template done over 4 days. So any questions on that, Josh?
Okay, so yeah, I do have a couple. Okay, so let's say you pick, I don't know, like I have a Swiss bar. If I do my bench with a Swiss bar, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that for max effort. I figure out what my max is on Monday or the first day, and then I know we're probably going to manipulate it a little bit because of the grip stuff, but just so I understand how Conjugate works, if I was doing the dynamic day, would I still do like that Swiss bar for the? Would I do the same lift as the max effort day as they would on the dynamic?
There's nothing concrete saying you have to do the same variation for a dynamic day once you get to dynamic day.
Okay.
There's no rules as far as that's concerned.
Okay. Oh, okay. And then, and then you do your rep. I guess the same thing would apply too. So, like, you're going to do your repetition work after your strength build and stuff on after your max effort, and then you're going to do another one after your dynamic effort. So those don't have to be the same exercise either.
Nope. You can like, if let's say you videotape yourself and you figure out your weakness in squats or deadlifts, maybe you cave over a little bit in your upper back. Then part of your repetition effort training would be movements that will strengthen your upper back so that doesn't happen anymore. And you would work on that until that weakness is fixed. And you would continually put that in, maybe not every week, but on a frequent basis in order to improve that lift and take away that weakness. And then when you analyze your video again, maybe maybe you don't cave over from your upper back in the deadlift anymore, but maybe your knees pop in. Well, then maybe you need some glute work or something. So you would make that part of your repetition effort.
Okay, so that was my next question. It was one of the ones I wrote down. Like, so I'm lucky enough I have you as a coach, so I can videotape myself, and I'm like, what do you think of this? Because like, since I'm still kind of new to the strength training side of things,
Yeah.
like I work your weaknesses. Yep, I'm on board. I don't know what my weaknesses are, and then also not all the time. I mean, because I'm fairly new, probably everything is a weakness, but like I also don't necessarily know what the best exercise is to strengthen that weakness. Because I know you listen to these guys that are talking about conjugate, and they're like, "Oh yeah, use your safety bar squat to fix this." You know, I know they know from years of experience, and but like I don't have that experience, or I don't even have the tools to try to like for the people at home. How would they know what their weaknesses are and what exercises would actually help fix it?
Well, probably to get a trained eye to look at your max effort work, they'd be able to see what your weakness is. But most people cannot go wrong by training the back side of their body. So triceps, upper back, lower back, glutes, and hamstrings. Those are generally the weaknesses that will hurt people, well, will hinder people's lifts the most. It's not usually like front of the core. It's not usually quadriceps. And it's generally not pecs. It's usually triceps on the bench. So you would do targeted work to bring up the strengthen your upper back, your lower back, strengthen your glutes, strengthen your hamstrings, and strengthen your triceps. Those are usually the movement, the muscle groups that are the limiting factors, the weaknesses in those exercises.
So if I just figured out a pretty good exercise for each of those, and then I just worked them into the workout, I probably too much to do strength training for all of those every single week, but like maybe every other week you could split them up somehow. I don't know. Like, and then I
Well,
just focus on those, it would probably help. Or is that just too much and I should be focusing on one thing at a time?
no, it's not too much. So like you should be doing hamstring stuff anyway. You should be doing glute stuff anyway. You should be doing tricep stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just the amount of stuff that you would do in order to bring that weakness up is what changes. So Evan and I generally only train 1 hour. Like we get in and we get out. And Louis always talks about serum testosterone levels dropping after 45 minutes. So it really doesn't behoove you too much to continue to train beyond that. So you're going to reach a point of diminishing returns. So, you know, those days where if you know, if we're going to hit a max effort and then we might hit 3 repetition effort drills, and then that's an hour. That's all we got. So what you have to do is just make the best use of your time possible and target those exercises that you need to do to bring up the weaknesses.
Okay. Like, so like I care more about like deadlift because that's my favorite exercise. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to work on the bench and stuff too, but like, so like I probably should be really focusing on like glute and then like maybe RDLs and maybe glute thrusts and or hip thrusts or what they call them,
Yeah.
and then maybe like a row or something hit my upper back, and then if I just focus on those 3 at first, and then if I decide later I want to bring up my bench, then I can start kind of hammering the triceps or maybe do a little tricep every week or every other week.
Yeah. I would be doing some tricep every week, no matter what.
Okay.
Um, so now because I do grip 3 days a week, I always try to take 1 day off a week. So this week I'm not training Saturday. I'm at this conference. So my last grip day will be Sunday. But generally my training split is Monday body, Tuesday grip, Wednesday body, Thursday grip, Friday body, Saturday grip. So I don't have a 4th day where I can use for all 4 conjugate days. So what we did at first was we applied the 4 days over the course of 2 weeks. So we would go max effort upper on Monday, max effort lower on Wednesday. Then we would go max effort upper again on Friday, but it would be the other movement that we didn't do on Monday. So if Monday was bench, we would do press on Friday. Okay. And then the following Monday would be the other one that we didn't do on Wednesday. So if Wednesday was deadlift, then the following Monday would be squat. So then it would be squat, bench, deadlift. Then we wouldn't have press that week. It would be the following Monday, and we would go press, dead. I don't know, whatever the order is.
Right. You just pick
Okay.
it, and you just always do them in order, just however they turned
Yeah,
up in the week.
that's right. We would always do them in order. It's just one would not get a max effort drill that week. It would be the Monday of the following week. The other difference that we did was on max effort deadlift days, we would do dynamic effort squats, which is totally contradictory to what Conjugate suggests. But in order for us to get everything in, we had to do it that way, and it still worked perfectly fine. It worked out perfect. So on a day that was max effort deadlift, we would get our dynamic effort work in the form of a squat. On a max effort bench day, we would get our dynamic effort in the form of a press. On a max effort squat day, we would get our dynamic effort work in the form of a deadlift. And then on a max effort press day, we would get our dynamic effort work in the form of a bench variation. So that was the first change that we made. That was the first iteration of the diesel style conjugate. One thing that we added in there was whatever we did for max effort, whatever that variation was, we would then drop down to 85% and do 3 sets of 3. And on the last set, we would go to failure. So let's say it's a max effort press day and we were just doing barbell press. Whatever we got that day, if we set a new PR, we would multiply that by 80.85. We get a number. We would do that number for 3 sets of 3. And on the third set, we would try to get 4 or 5, maybe 6. But usually it's only 4, sometimes 5. So
Okay.
that's another change that we implemented that isn't necessarily what the classic conjugate method would suggest. But this actually helped us out quite a bit because we were able to get more work on our major lifts. So we found that to be a major benefit. So our workout on a press day would be try to break your PR on that form of press. Whatever the form of press was, we would do 3 sets of 3 at 85% and then rep out on the last set. Then we would do speed bench, dynamic effort bench. And then we would go into our other repetition effort method work where we would work on our tricep strength or, whatever it was, using, some kind of a tricep extension, whether it's a Tate press or a rolling tricep press or whatever the case may be. We would do a tricep. And then we would see, at that point, we would see how much time was left. And we'd try to stick a back exercise in there and a bicep exercise. So that was the next way that we changed the program. Any questions up to that point?
No, I think I'm good on that one.
Okay. I know it would be easier to have a visual, but I didn't prepare that. What we're doing now is even differenter. So we went away from the 4-day rotation over the course of 8 days. And now, week by week, we go max effort upper, max effort lower, And then we do back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, all that stuff. It's essentially a bodybuilding day. And the reason is because all of the heavy pushing work was wreaking havoc on my elbows. They were killing me, and I wasn't PRing on anything because my elbows hurt so bad. So I had to do less volume with the pressing and the bench pressing. So, and that has made a tremendous difference. And I don't feel it's affected me. Like doing back once a day instead of twice, I haven't had any negative effects that I can see whatsoever. Generally on that Monday, max effort upper, we do not do any back work. We might do posterior deltoid work, or we might do like a face pull for the upper back, but we aren't doing a row or a lat pull down or a pull up or anything like that. We're going to save that to Friday. So to give you an example of our workout, today happens to be Friday as we record this. So we warmed up with some light pull downs. We did 135 for like 3 sets of 6 to 10. Then we did weighted pull-ups. So we used a dip belt around our waist and added weight. We did 3 work sets. I added 90 pounds and I got 332. So in a way that's kind of max effort, but most conjugate programs, they only go for a max single. They don't go for max doubles and triples. Sometimes you see that. That's a variation that some people do, but it's not the classic conjugate method from what I've seen. So from there, we actually did 3 back exercises. So we did the heavy weight added pull-ups. Then we did heavy rows, and we did the 1 work set method. So I just went to 150s and I went for as many reps as I could for 1 work set. And left, I got 8, and I kept it really strict. I didn't throw it. I controlled the descent on the negative. So I got 8 reps, and then on with my left hand. Then when I went over to my right hand, I only got 4 because my left groin was bothering me. So we were doing the variation where you put 1 knee and 1 hand on the bench, and my left groin was bothering me. So I just cut the exercise short because I didn't want to strain something in my groin. So that was the second back exercise. Then we did seated rows with kind of a wide grip, and we pulled it towards our throat. We pulled the bar towards our throat. We did 2 work sets there because we were going to do just 1 work set to failure, which we did go to just about failure, but it was 135 still, and I didn't feel I was pulling it far enough to get a really good contraction. I didn't like how it felt. So we dropped it down to 90, and then I was able to get it much closer to my throat. I was happier with that. So next time I might do 100 pounds if we do a 1 work set.
Okay.
From there, we did a concentration curl, 1 work set. So we did a couple warm-up sets, but then 1 work set to failure. Then we did, I think, a posterior fly variation, and that was 1 work set to failure. And then I think we did something else. Oh, we did tricep. We did rope push downs for our triceps, 1 work set to failure. And then I did 3 sets of neck flexion and 3 sets of neck extension. And I was done. And it took about an hour.
Man, you're hustling. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, we don't. So optimally, you would take at least 2, probably even better, 3 minutes between sets. But because we were only doing 1 work set, we really probably only took about 45 seconds to 1 minute between sets. It was whatever time it took for the first guy to get out of position, the next guy to go get into position, do his set, and then the first guy gets back into position. Whatever that time period was, that's the rest that we took. And then in between exercises, it might have been a little bit more, or even about the same, because we were just coming up with the exercises that we wanted to do and then going over and doing them. We might wipe our brow or take a drink, but that's basically what we did for tonight. When we did, so Wednesday I trained alone and I was feeling pretty good. I did deficit deadlifts. So I stood on a 3-inch box and my PR, I think, was 520. And I haven't done any double overhand deadlifts in a long time without straps. So I wanted to see what I could do. So I did 1 rep with 405 as I worked up, and because 405 is usually something we would do anyway, but I would generally use straps after 315. But I was like, I'll see what I can do. So I did 405 from the deficit double overhand. I did 455 from the deficit double overhand. And then I went to 525 and I couldn't pull it. Just something was off. I don't know. So I failed on my max effort. From there, I dropped it down to 495. Now, normally we would go the PR is 520. So 85% of that, and we would do 3 sets of 3. I didn't do the math. I just dropped it down to 495 and tried to do it, and it just wasn't there. There was just something off with my body, so I didn't force it. So, but normally we would do 3 sets of 3 there, and then on the last set, we would do as many reps as we could get.
So if that ever happens, if you're into the strength part of the repetition portion, whatever you call it, and it's just not there, is it better just to go ahead and just drop the weight a little bit and still get those reps in?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Optimally, I would have done the math. So I don't know, and I'm afraid to even pull my calculator up to do it right now. But whatever 520 is times 0.85, that's what would get on the board, or that's what would get on the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rare that I can't do that accessory weight. I don't know what was going on.
85%. Okay. Because that was going to be one of my other questions I wrote down. So so you, like you said, you failed your 1 lift. So if you're going to do your max effort lift and you fail, obviously that exercise is not going to come back around for another, I guess, whenever you decide to do it, but it could be a month, it could be 2 months, depends on how many variations you have, right?
Yeah, there's no rule. And we don't know. One thing real quick, I don't want to make it sound like we have 15 variations, so you only do those exercises every 15 weeks. That's not the case. We probably have like 6 exercises that we do most often for deadlift. Probably the same for squat. There's probably like 5 exercises that we do most often for press, and there's probably about 5 that we do most often for bench. Oh, another thing that I do different is I don't barbell bench. I only do dumbbell bench. So some of the variations are incline bench and flat bench with chains added, things like that. So that's another variation of my variant of this method.
So you have your pet exercises that get in the rotation often, and then you just have a couple extras you throw in just when you feel like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you have one of those pet ones, and you're like your deficit deadlift. We can use that example. Okay, so you pull it on week 1, and you fail on you don't get the PR, and then you go and you wait a few weeks, and you come back around, and then you try it again, and then if you fail again, is it like? Obviously you're supposed to be getting stronger as you're working on your other lists, but like what happens if you don't like
I
you
just
don't hit the
pretend it didn't happen. I don't let it bother me or anything. We haven't downgraded our maxes on anything except for press, because press was where we were struggling the most. So some of those variations we have downgraded our PRs because it's been so long since we PR'd on some of them that I think we have actually gotten weaker. But
okay.
as far as what some of the other leaders in the industry have done, like some of the top names that you would think of in powerlifting, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, because obviously you can't continue to progress at 5 pounds per whatever indefinitely. At some point, you're going to max out, right? So
I think a lot of people PR 5 pounds just about every single. Well, I think a lot of people break their 1 rep max just about every single week, and I think it's because they have so many variations that they test. The variations are different, but they're still using the same muscle groups that you would use on the primary lift. So, when I say when I say that I didn't PR on press for 6 months, that's only barbell strict standing press. That's not the other variations.
Right, right. But okay, so I guess as long as you're making PRs on any of the lifts, you're still growing.
Yeah, and if you have something that is not, if you have a variation that is not progressing, I would say it's because there's a technical thing going on, or um, a a muscle group is lacking, so you need to strengthen it. So in my case, when my PRs started stopping on overhead press, it's when my elbows were killing me so bad. And I think I've had the strength to actually break my PR on press, but I was having trouble with my right shoulder becoming unseated when I was pressing. So that's a technical thing. And I caught that with video. I figured that out I could feel it happening, but I could actually see it on video. And I was like, that is why I'm not progressing now. So this past week, when we did the 2 max effort lifts in the same day, this past Monday, I made sure that I was keeping my shoulder seated, and that's why I broke those 2 lifts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice.
So it was a technical flaw that I was not addressing that was holding me back, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess I need to start videotaping myself more often since I work out alone in my basement. Like I don't have a training partner or any of that sort of thing.
I
But
videotape every single max effort lift. Whether I post it or not is another question. But I videotape every max effort lift so I can look at it.
okay, yeah, yeah, I do end up videotaping a lot of my stuff, but mostly like the grip stuff. And
Mhm.
then like when my phone gets full, I just download it to a folder on my computer, so I have them all. But
Yeah.
uh, okay. Uh, Looking at my notes here. See if there's any
Yeah.
other questions I have. Yeah, that was the last one. What do you do if you don't end up progressing? Because it was basically how to program, which you covered, and then the other one I had was like idea. Because like I know you said that before, like you have 15 variations of different lifts. I know you just said that you don't use them all, but like I couldn't come up with that many ideas. I guess you like banded and chains, and then you could use them like let's say the deadlift, and then you could do like a deficit. So now you got a banded and chain for each one of those. So there's
Yep.
2,
Yep.
and then I guess you could do sumo and conventional.
Yep.
So there's another set of different ones.
You can also take them. You can put the weights on top of boxes, so you're abbreviating the pull. So
Mm-hmm.
you can
Yeah.
so you can do that. You can do that conventional and sumo. You can do that with bands and chains. You can do that with. So we have 2 sets of boxes that we use: a 3-inch and a 9.5-inch.
Okay.
And then you can also pull it out of a rack, which they are not the same lift. Even if they are from the same height, they are not the same lift. Our weights are not the same on pulling out of in the rack off the bottom pins, and it's just about the same height.
Why do you think that is?
It's because when the weights are on the box, you're going to have a little bend to the bar. You don't get that bend when it's sitting in a rack because the contact points are not the same.
Oh, because it's inside the weight, so you kind of lose all the whip out of the bar when
Yeah.
you're pulling the
And,
slack out.
yeah, and we do not we do not use a deadlift bar. There are videos on my channel where we use the deadlift bar that Luke supplied the gym with, but we don't
Mhm.
use it. We use all the same bar every single time.
Okay, so I do have a deadlift bar, and I do have like a general purpose bar. Could I use that as
Yeah,
one of my variations, or
that's
do
another
you not use the
variation.
deadlift bar, or do you not use the deadlift bar for a reason?
I don't use the deadlift bar because when I went back to the straight bar, just the normal bar,
Uh huh.
my weights were not as good. So I don't even use it.
Okay. Now I also have an axle. Actually, I have two axles. I have a 2-inch one and a 2 3/8 inch one. Could I add those in as a variation also, since I
You
do the
could.
grip, or is that not going to be heavy enough to help my deadlift?
Exactly. In my opinion, using using an axle without straps, you're making that a grip lift and it's no longer a powerlifting lift. What we're talking about today is strengthening the power lifts and press, not grip. Grip would be
Okay,
totally different.
but I have straps that will reach around
Okay. So
those
if you have
bars.
straps, then yes, that is another variation because grip is not the limiting factor.
Right. It just because there's no bend in the bar then, right? I mean,
Right. And in
yeah.
my opinion, it the way I approach the deadlift is I am testing my back and lower body strength. I am not testing my grip. That is why I haven't pulled 405 or higher in so long on a barbell deadlift, because I used to do all double overhand deadlifts and I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
I don't want the limiting factor in my deadlift to be my grip. And if when you're going double overhand, if your CNS is shot, if you've got a slight tear or your cat clawed you and it's bothering your grip and it's gonna cause an issue, or if you seat your grip on there and it's off by a 16th of an inch, that's what could cause you to fail on the deadlift, even though your back and your lower body is strong as hell that day. So I don't want that excuse. So I made that switch, I don't know how many years ago, at least 2 years ago. And my deadlift has improved by 25 pounds. So that's all I care about. I'm training the deadlift, not my grip. In a powerlifting meet, I would be forced to either do double overhand, or a hook grip or a supinated grip. And a supinated grip is not going to happen. It is not going to happen. I am not going to risk tearing my bicep due to a supinated grip. So the option, if I were to train for a powerlifting meet, which I have no plans of doing, but if I were to do it, I would most likely start training hook grip and get used to that for the meet.
And just pull double overhand just with a hook grip instead.
Yep. Yep. And then that would be another variation, really. That would be another variation.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's no point if I'm using straps. I guess there's no point in using my 2-inch axle and then turn around and using my 2 3/8 inch axle because it's going to be basically the same.
I don't
But
know about that. See, the axle does make some changes with the leverage because your hands sit out, your
oh,
cupping
yeah.
position is changed. So now your hand is out farther away. So it's going to make a change in leverage ever so slightly. And it's gonna be a different feel. Now,
Okay.
what kind of impact that can have on your deadlift over time, I'm not sure. I really don't know because I haven't done it, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that's done it and they can tell you whether or not it's helped. But I can tell you right now, if you just do double overhand deadlift on a 2-inch axle, your deadlift itself is going to go down. It's most likely going to go down because your body is not being tested in the same way.
Right. I was thinking of just adding it in and using straps just so my back was used to pulling on an axle. So whenever I compete in a competition for grip and we're contesting the axle, I'm ready for that. Because if I always pull on my deadlift bar, there's going to be a lot of bend in the bar before, and I'm taking all that slack out. Well, you're not going to have that on the axle. And I don't know how that would translate to when I'm training the grip stuff.
See,
You know, you know
I've
what I'm
seen
saying?
grip guys and gals doing axle deadlift with straps and
Yeah.
with the idea that it's going to help their grip performance in grip sport, and I just don't know about that. I I would just pull deadlifts. If you want to strengthen your back, if the objective is I don't know if my back is strong enough to outlift my hands on the axle, then in my opinion your best bet would be take your hands out of it, use straps, do a barbell and try to pull as heavy as you can and strengthen your back that way. But that's just my viewpoint on it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess the way I was thinking about it is like it's a different pull, right? If I'm in the process of just trying to get my back as strong as possible, there's going to have a different feel pulling on an axle as pulling on a deadlift bar. Is all I was trying to say.
Yeah, I just don't
But I guess
know.
maybe it doesn't matter that much.
I don't know. It's something I don't know about, but it's not something I want to test because I think it's just better to train on a barbell personally.
Okay. I mean, that's probably what 90% of my stuff's going to be anyway. So
Yeah. We also have a lift. We also have a number for trap bar. So I think mine was 605 and Evan got 615.
Mhm.
But I think we've done that twice in 2 years.
Yeah, I don't have so that's the other thing is I don't have. I have those two. I have a deadlift bar. I have a regular general barbell. I have those two axles, and then I have the two sizes of Saxons. But that's all I have. I don't have a safety bar. I don't have a camber bar. Um, I was thinking about maybe buying those attachments that slide over the end of your bar that makes it a
Yeah.
camber bar. Just
Yeah.
to,
The only
just
problem with that
cheaper.
is I don't think there's anything wrong with them. And we do have numbers for the camber attachments on there.
Mm-hmm.
However, most camber bars, the handles are much narrower than what those attachments allow. So if you think about it, the barbell has those inside collars where the weights go up against the, that edge. So that's maybe 5.5 feet, we'll say. I don't know, 5 feet. So, hey, Nick Howell, can you hear us? I mean, I think he can hear us because he left a comment. We did this before and the audio was messed up. So with those attachments, the furthest you can get those in, the way that those are built is to the collars. So when you grab them, your hands are way out here, right? And I think usually a camber bar, your handles are more in here. So yeah, he can hear us. That's great. Thank God.
Almost been
You
talking
understand
an
what I'm
hour. I
saying?
hope so.
The attachments that I have are not perfect replacements for buying a camber bar. But
Okay.
it's still a variation. The weights still swing a little bit, so it's causing that instability and forcing you to have to stay contracted more tightly.
Okay.
One thing I left out from earlier is anytime that you're doing either a dynamic effort or if you're accessorizing the squat and training at 85%, you want to approach every single one of those repetitions like it's the first rep in the set, and you want to fire everything and keep it contracted 100% like you would under a max effort lift. So you don't want to develop bad habits or get lazy or anything like that just because you're doing sub-maximal weight. Even sub-maximal weight should be done with perfect form. So I want to throw that out there too.
Okay.
Thank you, Nick. Any other questions?
I mean, we covered a lot. We've almost been talking for an hour. I don't know if I have any more or not.
Yeah. So a quick rundown. The legit original conjugate method is 4 days a week. I can't make that work with my training. Grip is too important to me, and powerlifting lifts are not as important. So I changed it so I have a 3-day split. And after a few iterations of these modifications, I do max effort on Monday for upper body, max effort on Wednesday for lower body, and then I do a bodybuilding workout on Friday. Then whatever I did on Monday, I will do the other upper body max effort lift on Monday the following week. And then whatever I did Wednesday, the other max effort lower body takes place the following week.
And then you do the opposite dynamic after
Right
you do
now,
your next
that's
rotation.
another change. Currently, because we are putting more emphasis on muscle building, we have eliminated the speed work. So I don't know what effect that's going to have on my overall performance. We only started doing that the last couple weeks, but that was because we wanted to have more time available for bodybuilding style training. So right now we are not doing the dynamic effort work. I forgot about that. And
Okay.
when we put that back in, we will most likely move away from the 25 repetitions and probably go more along the lines of 3 sets of 3 or 5 sets of 2 for speed, for dynamic effort. Just to cut the volume down a little bit and just to not eat up as much training time, because right now I'm just more interested in the aesthetics. So, I've taken off 20 plus pounds this year. I think I'm looking pretty good, brother. And I
You
want
can
to
tell.
continue in that direction right now. So I only have so much time. I'm budgeting that time towards more muscle building, and I'm including more work that is hypertrophy based rather than so much stuff that is strength and dynamic effort based.
Okay. So in my case, like, I don't care as much about the bench and the squat as I do the deadlift. I just
Mhm.
I want to get my deadlift stronger just because that's the one I like. So if I worked it out where I was doing a max effort for the deadlift and I did a dynamic effort for the deadlift, and then just did max effort for the other two and not worry about the dynamic effort, because I also am trying to put on a little muscle too. So I kind of want to make some room for that. But like I really want to get my deadlift up. So like, is there any benefit of keeping the dynamic stuff in just for the deadlift to try to get
Sure.
it at a higher
Yeah,
level?
absolutely. Absolutely. So from what I understand, the majority of the max effort lower body work done at Westside was deadlift variations. So
Okay.
they didn't do as much squatting as they did deadlift variations. So it'd probably be fine. All of this. So Nick Howell says, I've always wanted to know this from someone who does grip as well as the conjugate method because I'm down this path as well. Cool, Nick. Yeah, dude, I think it's perfectly complementary. I've always blended strength training emphasis with my grip emphasis. I think one of the big mistakes that grip guys make is they don't do enough training to bring up their overall strength. And I think the conjugate method provides a structure for me so that I am accountable to the system. And even though I've always tried to bring up my strengths, I think this has helped me even more to standardize my approach. What were we talking about, Josh? Oh,
Oh, I was
the deadlift
modifying
focus.
your modification to try to
Well,
make it
hey,
fit kind of like
no,
my goals.
you, Bruce Lee said, "Be like water. Water always takes the form of its container."
Hmm.
So, in this way, in this sense, you're going to form your program around your needs. So, you can always add squats in later. The deadlifts are going to strengthen many of the same muscles. So when you're ready to work squats in, if that day comes, you can work squats in. It's no problem. Like I said, there's no rules that you have to follow in order for this system to work, because I've broken a lot of those rules that you would think they were rules. I've broken those rules, and it's still continued to benefit me. And it's because I'm still working on these aspects that contribute to overall strength.
Right. If you or I were training to be elite level power lifters, it might be an issue, but since we're not, it's still probably getting us strong enough.
Yes, and frankly, you're a grip sport athlete. There are no squats in grip sport.
Right. That's why I don't. That's one of the other reasons why I don't care about it as much. Maybe a little bit for leg drive or something, but other than that, I really don't care about how much I can squat.
The only thing I would say to that is there is an aspect of upper back control that's necessary for back squats that you wouldn't be getting. So you would just need to supplement your accessory work in the repetition effort section of the training to include upper back work, which we've already talked about in the last couple weeks. So you should be implementing that, and then I think you'll be fine. But there's a little bit of upper back work that's automatically included in your training when you're doing back squat variations.
Okay. So, okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm in the same boat you're in. I train grip 3 days a week. So trying to fit it all in and working full-time job, it's just,
Yeah. When
it's
I
a lot.
was a little bit younger, training with Luke, and I'm going to say like 2013, 14, 15, 16, around those years, through most of those years, we would do 4 workouts a week. We would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and we would do a lot of times body and grip together. And those workouts were 3 and 4 hours long. So, you know, when I was 35 to 38, 39, I could handle that. But at this stage of my life, things are a little bit different, and I can't really justify those long of workouts so many days a week. And frankly, my goals have changed, so there's no need to train in that manner. This layout that I'm following right now meets my needs. I'm seeing good results in my strength training, and by isolating my grip, I can target what I need to grip wise and still get the results that I desire out of that training as well. I will say that when I used to pair things like bench press and squats with grip, that I did at that time have a much better crush than I have right now. So, you know, there may be value in going back to that, but I don't see that happening anytime soon because Evan doesn't train grip nearly as much as I do. And that would just lengthen the workouts, and I wouldn't be able to accomplish what I want to in my body training. So I would have to make a serious modification to my program in order to go back to that approach. And I'm just not willing to make that change right now.
So why do you think adding that stuff in was helping your crush?
I think it has to do with priming your nervous system. See,
you're just doing a heavy lift before you do your grippers, so then you're killing it.
At the time, we were doing maybe 5 sets of 3 on squats, and they were paired with our main work sets on grippers. So we would do a set of squats, then walk over to the gripper station and do our grippers.
Yeah, you've had me do that before too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
By the way, Nick, this is the level of instruction that I give at thegripauthority.com. I don't generally talk like this on YouTube because I put my detailed instructional information on thegripauthority.com. You should definitely check out thegripauthority.com if you're serious about grip training, because there's stuff like this on there all the time, and people are really missing out. I hear all the time that they get all this great information from my YouTube about grip. This ain't shit compared to what I put on the Grip Authority.
It's not. The grip he's got everything on there. I've never looked on there and not found something I was trying to look for.
Yeah, the detail that I'm going into about conjugate training, I've covered just about every major lift in grip sport in this detail. So, you know, people won't join for whatever reason, but you're definitely missing out. So I invite you to check that out. It's only $1 for the first month.
And there's programs for King Kong on there. There's programs for, I think you had one on there like for plate curls, and you got all kinds of because you were doing like workout for the month or for a while there. So I mean they're older, but they still work, because I've stolen some of those exercises out of those programs to kind of shore up some of my weaknesses.
I did a workout of the month for something like 2 years straight. So 24 workouts of the month.
Yeah,
The
there's
first year.
there's a ton of them in there. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else we didn't cover, dude. We've been jamming for an hour. So, if you're good, we can shut this puppy down.
Yeah, I think you've answered all my questions. I think I could probably take off tomorrow and start a workout. I think I have enough information now.
So what I would do, let's just do some action planning right now.
Okay.
If anybody that's going to apply this to their training, you want to decide what lifts you want to improve upon. So the 4 lifts that my program is based around is bench press, overhead press, deadlift, and squat. So take a piece of paper and then you cut it and not cut it, but trace out 4 blocks. In the upper left is bench, upper right is press, lower left is squat, lower left is deadlift, and just write out at least 5 different variations that you can accomplish. So for press, barbell press, just standing barbell press with a football bar, standing dumbbell press, seated press, barbell press with bands, barbell press with chains, football bar with bands, football bar with chains, seated football bar. You can attach chains to your wrists for dumbbells. You can attach chains to your wrists, or you can attach bands to your wrists for dumbbells. So right there's like 10 variations. And it's harder to micro load the dumbbells, but you can find a way to do that with magnets. Hey, I'd love to see a block set GHP 9, brother, and I can help you out with your gripper technique, Nick. That's one of the benefits of being a member. So the only thing that I do, the only caveat to that is I make people wait a month. So I don't do coaching point analysis videos until they've done the 1 month trial and paid for 1 month in full, which it's only $17. So you probably spend that much. Most people spend that much on coffee per week. So it's not that much. All right. So everybody should do that action plan. That'll get you started. And then just at least 5 variations. You can test each one of those out 1 day a week for 5 weeks. You've got your starting points. And then you try to break those numbers on the max effort day by about 5 pounds. Now, if you have smaller weights, you can break it by 2.5 pounds if you have 1.25 pounds. That's our plan on press next time that we go. Instead of trying to hit 260 and failing, we're going to go for 257.5 with the 1.25. But I think that's it. If you check the description box of this video, there's going to be resource links that you can check out to support me, my business, and my channel. So I've got a store. You'll be able to go to the store and you can check out products related to the type of training that you do. I have all kinds of products on grip, muscle building, and strength training. I also have free giveaways such as a strict curl report. I'm not going to do This Week in Grip, dude. It's way too much work. I'm sorry. This is the only podcast you're going to see me do. Another free report. So a free report on strict curl, free report on plate pinching, and then also my Amazon link and other ways that you can send support to the channel. So check out the description box of any video and you'll be, Home Gym Physique. I know that was a great show and it was a lot of fun, but it's a tremendous amount of work to do that. And I was getting like 0 views. So it's just not, you're on episode 73, check out the views. There's probably about 200 views on that puppy. It's just not worth the time investment, unfortunately. So yeah, that's it. I appreciate all your support. Give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, leave comments below, and all the best in your training. Thanks, Josh. We'll see you later.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.